Welcome everyone to my chess stream here on lichess and Twitch. My name is International Master William Paschall, and we are streaming chess, blitz and classical chess with viewers here. We're playing with commentary, friendly banter, and chat in the Twitch stream. Just let me edit the screen, correct it here. We had a technical problem yesterday, and I think it was related to my disk with my machine. Hopefully it will be better and everything will be resolved, but nothing is guaranteed in this life. So we have 3 challenges already from Suvik, CM Lazar Kolic, CM standing for Candidate Master, and it's a FIDE title, and Hyman Return, or Hyman Return, a new player I have not played before. Now, before we get started, I wanted to mention that we have a number of players from India, which is bringing up an interesting subject. My stream is at a time that's actually, I think, very prime time for players like you guys in India, the Pan-Pacific region. Sometimes we have a player from Australia. So I really appreciate you guys watching, and if you have friends who enjoy the stream, if you enjoy the stream, you have friends, and I'm sure you are, telling your friends about it, which is cool. So I noticed there's more players from India now, and that's really cool. So let's get it started. Get my video up here. Yesterday we lost the stream due to disk space issues with my computer. I think the stream was dropping frames because of slowness in the machine, but hopefully it is all resolved. If there's any problems, I will throw the machine out the window, and that would be that. But basically, we're going to get started. I'm doing this Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12:30 Central European Time, and also I do a simul on lichess at the moment on Sundays for 20 to 25 players every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. or otherwise known as 18:30 Central European Time. You can join that. If you do, it's taking at least 2.5 hours for the longer game, so just keep that in mind if you want to join the Sunday simuls. And finally, I'm going to release my video for last week's simul. I do a review video sometimes, and I promise that will be up today. So I want to get it up before the next simul. I'm sorry it took me so long, but the additional problem with my computer yesterday, I spent most of the day tuning up this computer, so we should be good to go. Suvik is first, Lazar Kolic, Hyman Return, Constant Change, and I do ask that you guys have an established rating, and I think all of you do. Hyman Return I hadn't played before, but the time controls are okay. You can challenge me to anything between 5 and 8 minutes with an increment between 3 and 5 seconds. Hyman Return challenged me to 5, 6, I'll let it go, but normally it's between 3 and 5 seconds. So let's get started. Suvik, we have played only 2 games against. E3. This is an interesting move, guys. On Wednesday, welcome Lazar Kolic, Constant Change, to the Twitch chat. On Wednesday, I did play this move, one of my games. It's not really a move that has a lot of independent significance. It's a move that transposes to other things, like the Queen's Indian attack, maybe Owen's defense reversed, and so forth. For my part, I could play any move here, really. But you do have to think about transpositions in terms of your own openings. If e5, d4, that's kind of a strange position. I don't know how I would really respond to that, If I play e5, the most aggressive move, white plays d4, I don't really want to play like an exchange French, honestly. E takes d, e takes d. e3 is not a bad move. By playing c5, there's some chance we get transposed to Sicilian. This is strange. E3, c5, e4. Like he wants to play the black side of the English. It's a funny story. I don't know. I've told it on the stream once, maybe. I was playing this guy in a tournament who was a FIDE master, who was very, very fond of playing the Mora Gambit against the Sicilian. But I don't really believe in the Mora Gambit, and I really I would be happy to play against the Mora Gambit. And so when I was paired with him with white, I actually played c3 on move 1, the so-called Saragossa opening, and hoped that he would play e5. So I would respond with c4, and he would respond with d5, and we would have a Mora gambit with the colors opposite. But he didn't do that. He ended up playing like c3, f5, and we had a weird Dutch. But this one I don't understand as much, Suvik. e3, c5, e4. I don't know why you're just giving me a tempo in the Sicilian. I don't see any particular significance there. c3, e5, c4 is different. Constant Change, the purveyor of logic. Yes, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I see patterns in everything. You know, one man's garbage is another man's art. Constant Change. He just wanted to play e4, and he played e3 by accident. So now he's correcting his mistake, so to speak. That is the most likely explanation. Sometimes we try to explain away everything when there's just like a simple answer. G3. So it's the closed Sicilian, but it's a closed, good decision for him to play a closed Sicilian because he has down a tempo here. And that extra tempo doesn't matter as much in a closed position as it is in an open position. Right. Plukrov. Reversed English. Exactly. So I am playing a line, a rather standard line of the English. And now f4. In a recent stream I talked about blocking the f-pawn with a knight, and that's not usually a good idea in closed positions. But the tempo matters here because there are sharper lines. In some of the sharper lines, white would already be castled after knight to d4. This would already be castled in, and he would have e5 in that position, which is known as quite a sharp variation. So I'm a tempo up on a key position. Bishop d7, there are a lot of different moves I can play there. He's not losing a pawn because there's this concept of pinning my bishop to my pawn on b7 if I try to take the pawn. On the other hand, one might argue that opening this position is not necessarily disadvantageous to black. So I'm going to try this. Probably the wrong capture though. This was not a mouse slip, but I don't know what we call it when we make a move we didn't mean to make. I meant to take on f3. Knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes b2, rook b1, bishop g7, rook takes b7, bishop c6. But I made a bad mistake here because I prefer to play with the capture on f3. Knight takes e2 leaves him with the passive knight on e2, and the queen remains undeveloped on d1. I think he's better off with the knight on f3 and the queen developed to e2. I haven't looked at this in great detail, obviously, but I think that's a little bit better version. Maybe it doesn't make a big difference, though. The positive side is that his knight on f3, unlike the bishop on f3, doesn't protect the e4 pawn. So, in any case, I guess black is better in this position. We can try to usurp the b file. And the other interesting move is queen a5. Usurper. Gregory Serper. Welcome, guys. Good day. It's Friday. Yes, Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. I'm going to a poker tournament tonight in a Hungarian poker club. It's called the Lucky Friday the 13th tournament. But obviously, this is the plan. after the capture on b2 and the resulting capture on b7, he's left with this pawn on a2 that's difficult to protect. I can also contest the open file. And we should also keep in mind that he doesn't have any entry points along the file, so there's nothing he can really do. I think we should take the pawn here. He's trying to get some counterplay on the king side. You guys can see that. Now this a-pawn queens pretty quickly, so there doesn't seem to be any great way of improving my chances of defense against this pawn storm on the king side. And I think that moving anything on the king side would weaken my king side. So I'm probably better off just ignoring that, you know, and trying to weather the storm, so to speak. But I think first of all, we might want to take over the b file before we start any other business. I mean, this is the way that the closed English tends to work when you're playing it. You make some inroads on the queen side, the other side attacks on the king side, then you kind of try to invade and eat your way laterally through the black position. So a typical English, really, like picking off the a pawn and then getting control of the b file, maybe infiltrating on the 7th rank, and then laterally trying to, like, you know, break through the white position at c2. It looks pretty typical. The other plan, though, of launching the a pawn deserves serious consideration. It's down there to a3 pretty quickly. I mean, it takes me 3 moves to get it down to a3. And we've got the a1 square controlled by, the queening square controlled by the bishop on g7. I can play rook to b2. It feels like an aggressive move, but, you know, I'm not really sure I can do much. Rook b2, he increases his pawn's attack or something. Then bishop a4, I can maybe win the c2 pawn if I'm lucky, but he plays knight e1 even in that case, so it feels more efficient to go with the a pawn if there is nothing really wrong with it. There could be some complications here. f5 was not the move I was most afraid of. Having played a5, I was a little concerned about e5, blocking my bishop on the long diagonal and maybe trying to win my a pawn with rook a1 and rook takes a5. This one I'm going to take with the e pawn, chipping away at his pawn chain, and we could consider taking with the g pawn too, but it will open up my king a bit. I'm not convinced that white has sufficient compensation. Maybe I need to take it while the taking's good. Taking while the taking's good here. If I let that pawn remain, it could get worse for me. I don't like opening up my king, but there's even an outside chance I could play king h8 and rook g8 and take over along the g file. Yeah, I sort of expected knight g5. He's threatening queen h5 here. You know, this is going to get a little hairy, as they say. Would appear. He may decide to sacrifice a piece. If that's the case, we can sacrifice a piece back. Why not f-rook? Why not f-rook? You mean to leave my rook on a8? The thinking was to keep f7 protected in the event of this, like, kind of stuff along the f file becoming an issue. But constant change is a good question, and I'm not sure, you know, which one was correct. Suvic playing this game quite quickly. We'd like to remove that knight from the board. It would be quite difficult for him to checkmate me with no knight there on g5. This is gonna be pretty tough. Good calculation required here. It appears he has some legitimate kingside attack. You guys may hear a sound in the background. That is the sound of pouring rain on the roof where I live. The temperatures have gone up here very, very suddenly. It was like -15 at one point, and in the last couple days it's suddenly well above freezing. So instead of snow, we have rain, unfortunately. We normally try to play something between 10 and 11 games every stream, streaming 2.5 hours. Of course, the more blitz games we play, like 5 minute with a small increment, the faster the games go by. Most of the games are 8-3, like this one. Looks like the stream is holding up. Queen h5. This is not the move I expected. Alright, I think this guy has to go. But as I said earlier, having taken a piece, an extra piece, we can afford to give back material. To be perfectly honest, Suvic, I was more concerned about pawn takes pawn in this position with the threat of f6. Queen h5 might not be as good. This queen has a way back into the game. It also protects f7. And we have knight g6 if we need. I could perhaps move my f rook somewhere and evacuate the king to f8. So I think that black has his house in order. I don't know that that would have been the case after pawn takes pawn. I was quite terrified of what was going on. Pawn takes f5, pawn takes g5, f6. Looks very, very dangerous for black. Okay, I mean, maybe I can defend there, but it was kind of touch and go. It would have been very touch and go, as they say, and I don't know that it would have held or not. But queen h5 doesn't look as threatening. Yeah, e takes f5, h takes g5, f5. Is that what I said? f6. Yeah, Sarontia. That's the line that looks quite dangerous for black. I don't think the text position is a serious problem. So, yesterday I played a couple games off stream. I played one game in the weekly classical tournament. My opponent was a master strength player from the US and drew against me in an interesting Benoni. I tried to play our Gingy Indian again, this line I played in the Weird Wednesday stream and yesterday. What am I talking about? Yeah, that's what it was. Yesterday I had an interesting game with who was it? Oh, Lazar Kulich. Okay, Lazar, what's interesting about the game you played with me yesterday, and kind of shocking, is that the move that you played, d takes c5, is not that common. It is a seemingly good move. But what's more shocking is that after e6, your move knight a4 appears to be a theoretical novelty. And although it's not a very common opening for black, I'm like a little bit shocked by that. Bishop takes e4. I'm a little bit shocked. That could have been a theoretical novelty. I mean, it's an extremely logical move. I have a weakness on b6, and Lazar Kolich did like knight a4 to defend his pawn on c5 and the weak b6 square, and I could find no games where that's ever been played before. I thought that was really an interesting game. And I was unsure about the computer's analysis of the opening. Now Civic is lost, but he had his chance to play that line that I talked about. Your daughter's living in Budapest. Wow, playing basketball for Vasas, if you heard. Oh my gosh. We were just watching a men's basketball game the other day. No, I didn't know that. That's really cool. I will check out the Vasas team, but I was just watching. Yeah, I don't know the women's basketball. Occasionally, I'll watch Hungarian men's basketball. That's awesome. Wow. So we will check that out. Lazar Kolich, anyway, this is the guy. He's up next. He's talking about his daughter's here in Budapest. Well, that's awesome. But anyway, he's talking about that. I was just talking about his game against me yesterday, where I don't know if I want to play the same thing again. We could try it. Thematic tournament. I don't know if he wants to repeat the same thing. This is what we had yesterday, and I looked at this for quite a while. I will give you guys a background again. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, I faced this move against Michael Valvo, who's, I don't know if he's still alive. He should be, but I think he had health problems. So he's an international master from the United States who's probably around 70-ish, or at least very, very late 60s now. I think he had some health problems, so I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. But he played this against me in a New York Open over 20 years ago, and I was like, with white, I was clueless what to do. And apparently it's classified as the so-called Gingy Indian defense. There were some players playing this opening with black, and notably American Russian import grandmasters. Three of them to be here named: Dmitry Gurevich, Lev Albert, and Roman Gingiashvili. So this was some kind of little trend going on with this opening. Around the time I started playing chess in the United States, in the mid to late 80s, when these guys were at their heights, Lev Albert was U.S. champion, and Gingy and Dmitry Gurevich were extremely strong. So somebody named it, I think Eric Schiller maybe, the Gingy Indian. Now later the defense with d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, c5, what the British called the beefeater variation, d5, bishop takes knight on c3 check, would be called the Gingy Indian. So we have two Gingy Indians, named after my former associate, Grandmaster Roman Gingiashvili, who, though we've had a falling out, I have to credit him with helping me a lot at a critical stage in my chess career. But anyway, all that background aside, Lazar Kolich played more critically yesterday with knight to c3, and I played c5, and instead of doing some kind of Benoni thing, he just took on c5. And after quite a bit of research, it turns out that's a pretty good move for white, and I did the best I can do, e6. And now he played a totally logical but never tried move, knight a4. And I played, in that position, knight e4. I guess Plu-Crow or somebody was on the right track yesterday. Apparently after knight e4, he played knight f3. I played knight takes c5, and then I said he should have played knight c3, but somebody was saying you can play b5, you can play b5. And apparently that's the critical line, like knight c3, b5, according to the computer. Anyway, so that's a little soap opera with what's going on. Now, instead, Lazar College played bishop f4 here. It kind of makes some sense. He's sort of playing against my dark squares with bishop f4. So I don't know if this was pre-planned or he just decided to try something different. But I'm going to start speeding up the game here. Bishop f4, okay. a6 pretty irrelevant, I would say, in light of this new London system type of development here. How am I going to develop my king's bishop? We could play a King's Indian type setup. He's played c4, however. g6. Let's just revert. I don't have a lot of time. Let's see if I can get something relevant, some kind of relevant setup here for black. b5 seemed thematic. Not sure about the timing though. Blue Crow, that's a critical line. The b5. It was absolutely verified by the Stockfish, and positions are really interesting in our game from yesterday with college. The positions are very interesting after knight back to c3, b5 with very, very great complications. I can sacrifice a pawn and get some Benko Gambit type of counterplay, but after I analyzed the game with Michael Valvo, it was obvious to me that this guy, he's kind of a theoretician, and he was, again, I'm not sure if he's still with us, he seemed to know a lot. When we analyzed after the game, he seemed to be like, you know, a freaking expert on a6, so he was talking about all sorts of stuff. I imagine those kind of variations I was just playing yesterday. Like the variation we had in the game would have been something that a Michael Valvo would have had like totally worked out with extensive analysis, you know. So if you do play something weird like this knight f6, a6, etc., the game yesterday with Lazar College would be something like you have to have kind of like set and ready to go before you even try to play it in a tournament game. The name Gingy Indian, no, it's not like that, man. It's DZ. We know where Gingy Indian came from. And I wasn't happy with him for 20 years. Okay, bishop d3. But it's time to bury the hatchet with Gingy. Originally I was intending to do something like c6 and b5 here, which is certainly okay. But now that he's put the bishop on d3, I'm thinking we can convert to some kind of bishop g4 type of... He's playing with fire. Might have been better to play knight c6 there, I don't know. We've got very, very good play against the dark squares in the center. Although bishop f4 is playable in the classical King's Indian, in some variations, like once Alexander Neumann played against me in the knight a6 line of the classical King's Indian, in general, we're normally seeing people play e3 when they develop the bishop out on f4. Kind of like a Smyslov. Speaking of Gingy again. Grandmaster Gingy Ashvili, that's one of his favorite lines against the King's Indian in Blitz. Bishop f4 and e3. It's very easy to play. somewhat similar to bishop g5 and e3, which I play myself. Black has a good game in this position, at least equal. So he's basically a good tempo or two down in the bishop g4 king's Indian here. I guess the a6 is debatable, so we'll call him like a tempo down. Now this might be one of those positions where if you try to do e5, something weird happens to you. Now, e5 should really be playable. But I guess e5, pawn takes pawn, and if pawn takes pawn, knight takes e5. Is that one of those tricks that works? Bishop takes e2, knight takes c6, bishop takes d1, knight takes d8. Looks like that might work for black. So if e5, I'll probably end up like having to take with the bishop on f3 and then take back with the pawn and have good control of d4. Dr. Checkmate. Dr. Checkmate can answer our question. Dr. Checkmate, you're from Colorado. Is Michael Valvo still alive? And is he still alive? Let's establish if he's still alive or not. International Master Michael Valvo. Dr. Checkmate is a Coloradian. So, or at least he lives there, so he can answer our question, because I had a game against this opponent yesterday in a line that Valvo used to play, and he beat me with in a tournament game. I was thinking he had some health problems, and I mean, a lot of people die without my knowledge, so we lost a lot of chess players last year in 2016. You haven't heard Valvo's name in years. That doesn't give us a conclusion one way or the other. Well, even if he is alive, I imagine he had some health problems, and he may not play chess or may not have played chess in years. Well, just figured I'd ask you. He was born in 42. Oh, he died in 2004. Wow. Okay. So he's been dead for 10 years. 12 years. He wasn't that old, but he did have he would have been 74. Rouse the time. What are you talking about? Yeah, the Valvo. Okay, so Valvo's been dead since 2004, which was the year I moved to Budapest. Well, no way to know, since I didn't know about it. He wasn't a very social chess player, and wasn't part of my chess scene, but he was relatively young when he died. What, 62? Okay. Well, that answers that question. So unfortunately I have to give up my bishop on f3. Now, I guess there's more than one way to play this. It is a pity to close the bishop's diagonal. So, my original intention was to take with the pawn. Having played a6 doesn't exactly do a lot for my cause here. Doesn't advance my cause very much. Gives white counterplay with queen b3 and stuff like that. So maybe I'll change my plan. I initially wanted to play e takes and stick a knight on d4, but it's probably okay, even with the stupid move a6. Though it does seem... Although if I do take with the knight, like which knight do I take with here? Alright, whatever. I'm crazy. I should take with the bishop. If I take with the piece, I take with the bishop. And the other knight goes to c5. Okay, enough said. I made a decision. Yes, I have a bad bishop, but it's okay because it will leave that position later on and go to f8 and activate on the dark squares. Nothing is forever. He copied my idea, queen b3. So, well, I guess we can play queen c8 if nothing else. I guess rook b8 might have been better. This is not good. I made a series of bad moves. Rook f8 is not going to help me. Alright. I got to avoid the fork. King h8! Exclamation point. Under the circumstances, this move gets an exclamation point. I made a bad move. Probably should have taken with the bishop on e5. Then I should have defended the b-pawn with the rook. And luckily I have f5, so I wasn't dumb enough to play like another move there. Wow. f4. Okay, this is just going to get totally bizarre. We've missed a series of moves, and now we're slightly worse. It is my, what, second game for the day. So I'm a little bit groggy yet. You're kidding me. You have that bishop e3 move. Man. All right. I'm not sure I need that for anything. Wow. He's just like Mr. Zwischenzug. Alright, don't try this at home, children. The way I've played this game has been filled with inaccuracies. Just keep making bad move after bad move. Still, I'm in the game. God. Oh no. All right. He's played very well. He's played very, very well here. The queen c3 check shot should have been played. He's up a pawn, but his king is kind of open. So it's semi-dangerous. Oh, God, I didn't even see that. And you had that too? Please stop having defenses. Another one. I think you had queen h2 there. This is really, really difficult. No. I lost. Queen d6 check. Oh, what a battle, man. What a battle. You defended very well. Queen d6 check, I just completely overlooked. I was missing a lot in this game. I really tactically missed a lot of moves. So congratulations. I was, at the end there, a little punch drunk. But this is quite an interesting position. I don't know. Your passed pawn is very strong. I'm not under the impression that I'm necessarily winning this. I'm up a pawn, but the passed pawn is really, really good. I don't think this would be winnable for black. Good defense. Lazar Kolic. Constant Change has a chance to repeat the feat and beat me. I'm sure that I had some wins, but I just did not manage to find one. Many, many moves ago, wins the queen before he played h3. I wasn't pinned or something. Melvern boy, I wasn't. It wasn't like my rook was pinned to my king at one point. Yeah, but I'm sure I had wins. Okay, but anyway, that's the nature of having no time left. You don't have time to see everything, but I was disappointed with myself. I was pretty groggy in that game. But Lazar Kolic played well. He played the opening well. He outplayed me in the opening. I had to outplay him again to get a better position, and we both made a lot of mistakes at the end, obviously. I was in a worse position for much of the game. So constant change now, knight f3. I don't know what the advantages of knight f3 versus d4 for white. I guess we transpose to an accelerated dragon. Wasn't really in the mood for something else. Although here we have I want to say this is what they call the Bakony variation here in Hungary. I'm not sure the history of it, why it's called the Bakony variation. Queen a5 can transpose to a form of the modern defense. It's Friday the 13th. Well, Lazar Kolic is pretty good, so I've been lucky against him in the past. This time not so much, but wow, Queen d6 was just totally overlooked. My king 1 square too far away to stop the pawn. So Constant Change continues to play this variation. I keep telling you guys the knight's supposed to go to b3. Nobody cares to listen. And I've gone at length. I've discussed playing d5 is the textbook idea. But my argument for that is that yes, it's the best move for black, but it also trades a lot of pieces. So if you want to win, it's probably best not to play d5. He's playing a dragon with bishop e2. Not to say it doesn't have some value for white. Maybe white still has some advantage here, but it's probably better to play f3 and leave the bishop on f1 than play bishop e2. I'm not an expert on the proper dragon, so I think I played some bad moves in this type of position. Like, one thing I've done in the past is to play bishop d7 and then like trade knights on d4 and bishop c6 as if I were playing in a Marazzi or something. If I do choose to play this bishop anywhere with an exchange of knights on d4, the bishop needs to go to e6 and train at a2, train on the a2 pawn. I wonder what would happen if I did like a Larsen type of thing here. I play bishop e6. The Grandmaster from Denmark, and at one point number 2 in the world, Bent Larsen, he had the predilection to try like bishop e6 and in similar positions as this. It's not clear that white's best move is to take the bishop. Knight takes d4 and b5, exploiting the tempo loss of the bishop e2. Thank you for the suggestion, Plucro. We'll try that out next time. Very interesting. May well be the best. It's a pawn sacrifice, but I'm sure that black gets adequate counterplay. Someone said queen a5, but don't do queen a5 as long as the knight can go to b3. Now we can incorporate Plucro's idea. Knight takes d4 followed by b5. But I'll save it for next game. a3 is actually a weakening move, but at the same time, there are some variations where that can come in handy. Notably when I'm playing like knight takes d4 and queen a5 and rook b8 and b5 and b4, and like he can pin my pawn to my queen on b4 with knight a2, or that doesn't seem to be possible though. Chinese variation, queen b8. Anybody? I don't know. We just have to play quickly here. A queen a5 is the standard plan. I basically spent 3 minutes to play a usual move. This is a book position with like the pawn on f3, the bishop on f1, pawn on a2. Now he's really raising questions about bishop e2. Looks like a waste of time. it doesn't really need to coordinate, connect the rooks in this type of line. And here he goes for a queen exchange. Well, yeah, we had a similar ending that I lost against Etat Sawar, who may be watching. Actually, he's online. Unfortunately, queen d8 isn't really possible. The question about which knight to take or bishop to take with on d5, though. I guess taking with the knight is safer, but it's very drawish. Bishop takes, pawn takes. I don't have any kind of tactics. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight d7 would be like the typical plan. And that's the sort of endgame I lost against Etat Sawar. And the sort of endgame that Karpov once beat Tony Miles in. I'm sure a lot of other people have been beaten in by good endgame players. The bad bishop, it's not that bad. So we have to make a decision. Let's take this way. Something different. I was tortured in that bishop versus knight ending last time. I didn't really enjoy that experience, so let's play the safer move. White has a little more space, but on the other hand, he's a little bit extended here. I don't really think that black should lose this position. I don't think knight d5 is essential for white either. Kind of a drawing move. However, having played the passive bishop e2 and a3, maybe trading queens is not a bad idea for white. All right, let's see if we can win this, or at least draw. White has some pressure along the e-file, but at the same time, this pawn is a little bit overextended. It's also fixed on a white square, which restricts his bishop. On the other hand, white has more space. So, in a vacuum, this position should be a draw in most instances. Lazar Kalish says, I'm older than me. Yeah, I'm not surprised if you have a grown child. Hopefully you're older than me, but not necessarily. I'm pretty old myself. I blame bad luck for the game. I just blame me not really being fully alert. I was missing a lot of moves in that game against Lazar Kalish. A lot of moves. I was constantly surprised by his moves, which normally doesn't happen. Usually I'm quite a prophylactic player. I'm usually thinking about what the other player's trying to do constantly. So I'm not usually surprised by my opponent's moves that often, but in this game I was kind of like constantly finding myself surprised. Rook c5 is probably interesting. It also looks a bit like it could induce white to play c4 and b4. Computer will probably say it was the better move. And now an interesting moment. I don't normally put my pawns on the same color as my bishop, but I think in this instance my bishop has a lot of mobility. It's not a bad bishop because I played h5 and I have pawns on f7, g6, h5, and I really want to kind of fix his pawns and establish this guy on a good square at f5 perhaps at some point. I mean, it's most likely going to get traded off. This should be a draw. Constant Change is not going to take any risks here. I played this kind of position with him before. I mean, I could advance my pawns, but I mean, does this really have any value? Like the minority attack in this position when he's got pretty solid game going on? Maybe A5 isn't a bad move. We could threaten to play like a minority attack, but not commit ourselves completely. Need a little bit of breathing room. Could also fix his pawn. Could fix his pawn with A4. I have to be careful about putting my pawn on A4 though. I'm not sure that's necessarily a good idea. Who has the better bishop here? Interesting development there. He played H3, and I played Rook H8 when it's kind of a Mexican standoff. I mean, he's now in an awkward situation where his rook has to protect his pawn on H3. But now my rook is sort of tied down to H8, where it's not doing anything, just discouraging him from playing G4. But I'm having second thoughts if this was even necessary for me to fear G4. Wow, so he blundered. He apparently just like blundered here. Maybe he doesn't listen to the stream while I'm playing, because I think he would have not done that move for sure. Bishop G2, Rook D1. Then maybe H4. There could be a tactical problem. Bishop G2. Maybe I lose a piece. Rook H2. Bishop takes D5. B4. Oh my god. No time to calculate. Double-edged. My pawn gets to H3. Yeah, white screwed this up, obviously, guys. I'm not sure if I should even exchange my bishop. Keep him guessing. I'm about to lose on time. this is a win now. Guys, the quality of the games has to go up. Both on my side and your side. Not so easy, though, to win this. But I think winning the b2 pawn should be decisive. Okay, this was a tough position, but constant change as usual. You know, he had a lot of time. And he tends to play too quickly. And I've lectured on this subject extensively. Alright. Plukro is up next. Let's play a really good game. Anyway, I think this endgame should be a draw, but White took some chances he shouldn't have taken. Even playing h3, I think, was kind of risky. Even then, though, he could have remained there, just kind of doing nothing, and it's probably a draw. He's asking a question, Benko? I haven't seen Benko in a while. He's still alive and well here, living in Budapest now. He lived in the United States for years, but he made a decision, I don't know, you know. He always like went back and forth in the last 30 years, but I think he's living here. He's living here full time. So I realized that wasn't your question, Plukro, but I thought I'd throw that out there because. So the Benko, I don't have too many weapons against the Benko. I never really liked playing the accepted. And he's not my pal. You like plays on words. Plukro likes the plays on words. I don't know Benko very well. I mean, I know him to say hello, you know, and he knows that I'm an American, but we've never been. We've never actually played. He's been inactive. He doesn't play almost at all. So last time Plukro played knight c3, g6. Ah, this variation. Okay, this is what you were talking about last time. This is cool because I haven't played one of these in a while. Plukro is always asking me funny questions. This variation is quite well studied. I haven't really played one of these in a very long time. Both e4 and knight f3, I guess, are standard here. The Benko's still alive. Yeah, Michael Vavo's dead, but Benko's still alive. Who would have thought? Yeah, Benko. I saw an article recently he submitted to ChessBase. He does like endgame. He's still doing writing for endgame articles and stuff like that. So he's very alive. Very alive indeed. Plukro says Rook b8 and Bishop b7 both okay, not sure what to pick. I didn't know that Bishop b7 was a good move for black. Oh, Bishop e7. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say Bishop b7, no. This variation always had a certain subset of followers for black. But it's not, you know, it doesn't exactly lead to typical Benko structures. So I think it's one of the less popular lines for black, but it's certainly, I know it's probably been recommended in a lot of books and whatnot. Newberger. I'm in time pressure almost every game. Yeah, I need to play proper moves. I'm getting in time pressure every game. I'm not, believe it or not, you know, you wouldn't think so, but I'm not really that bad of a time pressure addict in normal play. If you watch me on the stream, you would think I was one of these guys like Alexander Ivanov, who's every single tournament game he's like hyperventilating and watching his flag hanging, but I never had that problem, to be perfectly honest. I've always been average to fast in terms of time use, but I think the increment is kind of tricky. It's actually, I'm becoming more reliant on it, and so this position, I guess there's nothing wrong with b3. b3 followed by knight b4, queen b2. I thought about bishop d2, sacrificing a pawn. I might have played that against a friend of mine, William Kelleher, many, many years ago. And Alexei Dreyev actually played a game, I remember, that was in the chess informant a long, long time ago, where he did something like that, but I'm not really sure. So I think you might be able to sacrifice the b pawn for the sake of getting these two bishops raking the king side. May not be necessary to take the time to play the move b3. That's my suggestion here. Alright. The queen should go to a place where it's not vulnerable to attack. So d2 rather than d3, where the knight can expose and hit it. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, the whole concept here is very simple. As I mentioned, I had a training match with FIDE Master Bill Kelleher one time, and at his house, actually. The only time I ever beat him. It's very strange. You play a person like 10 tournament games, and you have like 9 draws and 1 loss, rated games, and then it's strange. You play an informal but serious match at his house, and you manage to beat him like twice. It's funny though. It was like he wasn't trying as hard because we were playing at his house or something. The environment, it's not an officially rated game. So I could never really... People ask, what's your score against Kelleher? Well, I have like 9 wins and 1 draw. And, oh well, there are the games that we play at his house, but that doesn't really count, does it? Bishop takes d4, knight takes d4. Interesting. Man, this is weird. You know what I'm thinking about, don't you? Okay, it's best to take with the bishop. If I take with the knight, he has this crazy move rook d6 that was bugging the shit out of me. But bishop takes rook d6, white has e5, saving my position. And we'd also like to reach good knight versus bad bishop endgame, which is not going to happen here. So I am officially an idiot. No, I'm not. I'm not really an idiot. We could get bad bishop versus knight, but his bishop's pretty darn good. You have to admit. That's not a bad bishop, is it? The problem is knight takes d4, rook d6. I don't have a way to attack his c-pawn. If I had like queen a5 or something. Discoveries with knight e6. Man. Maybe I'm thinking about this too much, but it's just really irritating. It looks like black is okay. Sigh. Maybe we have some kind of weird intermezzos. What do you guys? How do you guys feel about weird intermezzos? Like, there's no knight to e6 trick, but bishop d5 seems kind of interesting, wouldn't you say? I'm like a computer. That's what you get when you play all this deep thinking chess. They call me the human computer. Also, there's something to be said for knight and bishop, or sorry, queen and knight. I can't really say, you know, I planned this out, but the knight and queen tandem is regarded as the best. XDLGM. A bishop d5 saved me, and the structure is the whole idea of the system. So normally that we're trying to get the d5 square. That's how I beat Kelleher in our match at his house, but the game that doesn't count officially. He'll take it to the grave that he's like +1 against me in official games. Knight f5, yeah, that's winning. Alright, here's a tough player, Perry Oda. He only gets white against me. And he always plays the Catalan. Well, that's enough of that. There's no more Catalan for you. We are not going to play... We're not going to cooperate with your Catalan desires. I haven't been playing too many King's Indians lately. We had our loss against Lazar Kolic, which became like a King's Indian, but it wasn't intentional. But I am playing the King's Indian as one of my main openings. I just like to switch up and play different stuff, you know, not to get old with the same openings over and over again. And here we have Gingy Indian 2. The Gingy Indian version 2, you guys see the obvious influence. Referred to by David Norwood and Company as the Beefeater attack. No wonder. I mean, David known to have a few drinks at the board. I remember one time at the World Open, he had like the last round game. I don't know, he was angry or something, depressed, and one of the only tournament players I've ever seen in like a major tournament who had like 4 hotel drinks like lined up at the bar at the table. You know, he had like big margarita glasses or something like. I'm no stranger to drinking at the board, but nowadays everything is so PC. It's rarely possible. The historic Hastings tournament in England was one where there used to be a pub outside the playing hall, and you could actually bring your beer in to the table. I was playing Luke McShane, like a tiny Luke McShane, playing and drinking a beer while I was playing him. Anyway, I'm totally getting off subject here, but it makes a fun stream. G3, Periodi's favorite structure. Not really a commonly encountered variation, but I guess there's nothing wrong with it. Position is sort of like a Dutch. Anyway, I'm off on kind of weird tangential subjects just for fun. PC equals no drinking. Yeah, like at the Hungarian Chess Federation, they like freak out if you bring a beer into the building. I guess there's a lot of like Bundesliga matches in Germany, I suppose. There must be situations where you're allowed to drink in the playing hall. And hotels, I mean, when there's tournaments at hotels, there's nothing against the rules. But I would suppose with the FIDE doping regulations, maybe alcohol is a banned substance too. Enhancing your thinking ability or something. Bishop to g2. Anyway, this all started because I was talking about the name of this variation, the Gingy Indian. Beefeater is a British gin, and for some reason the British, and David Norwood in his book on the modern defense, refer to this as the Beefeater variation. Now, we'd have to talk to a really experienced British chess player to learn the secret behind the naming of that particular variation. Bishop g2 now. I guess I don't really feel any particular need to play queen a5 right away. Maybe we should wait a moment. Or we could just delay it altogether. That's a typical idea in this variation. But something about the particular position bugged me a little bit about playing queen a5. Nothing dramatic White could do. Knight d7. In official chess rules, you're allowed alcohol. Oh yeah, the only sport I know where they test for it is sports shooting because it makes your hands more steady. Well, in the short term, in the very short term, probably. Although after a short period of time, I guess the opposite effect. But anyway, Norwood seems like a fun guy. He was lining up the margaritas, and he won that game too. Bishop f4. Not endorsing drinking, but it kind of takes the fun out of life if everything is not allowed. Bishop to f4. When I was playing the 11-year-old Luke McShane, drinking pints of beer on the Hastings Pier, I am being swindled for a draw. I never really imagined that he would become a 2600 grandmaster. Bishop f4. This bishop, it seems like he's occupying the knight's best square. But maybe it's time to start going after pawns. In the Winnower French, sometimes you see this queen a5 attacking the doubled pawns, right? Nice arrows, like I've been drinking beer. Queen b3. That's what I was concerned about earlier, guys. And that's why I used to play the system quite a bit, and I remember in particular Laszlo Aprieschi, he once did like queen b3 and queen b5 check and like took all the life out of the position against me. So I wanted to time this so he doesn't have queen b5 check trading queens, because I'm going to pick off the pawn on d5. That's another good arrow. We're going to pick off the pawn on d5 if he tries any tricky stuff with queen b5 check. In the meantime, this pawn is weak, and this highlights the weakness of bishop g2 in this type of setup. And it's also seen in the King's Indian. Fianchetto variations of the King's Indian tend to lead to positions where the c4 pawn has insufficient protection. So I recognize that Periodi is a good strategic player. He's drawn 2 games against me, and But this particular variation is a very abstract one indeed, and even a strong positional player can get himself in grave danger in this extremely sort of closed Nimzovician type of position. Yeah, 2700, McShane. He did it to me twice. He swindled me twice out of bad positions. Once when he was like 11, and then a year or two later. He was like a FIDE master at the age of, I don't know, 10, with a really low rating of 2050 or something, but obviously he was already getting pretty strong. So the standard Gingy Indian. We played two kinds of Gingy Indians today. Not spelled with a G. I used to play this line quite a bit, but most people don't allow it. For the most part, he's coming with knight G5. Well, so much for the idea of playing king d8. Castle's queenside. Knight e6. Well, castle's queenside wins the exchange for white. Maybe I should just try to win his pawn with queen a6. This guy is really strong. I mean, he almost beat me the last game. The first game I was kind of probably winning, but it was really complicated. And now he decides to play e4. But can I play h6 now? In between move? I mean, taking might have been adequate. Yeah, I think he's sunk here. Positionally sunk. Take, 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 take. These bishops, this is the strategic conception of this whole variation. Quite simply just to kill the white bishops. That's Roman's idea, and it's working very well here. As in the Nimzo-Indian, Fianchetto's setup against this is not considered to be the best. Okay, I mean, e4 I guess was a mistake, but there are other ways for white to play that are better. But it's definitely a difficult system to play against if it's like the first time you played against a strong player. My score is good. And my colleagues who have played this variation for black have scored very well as well. Most strong players don't allow it. The first time I saw this played was back in... It was kind of discovered, but I should give you some information. We talked about the beefeater attack, and we talked about David Norwood and Gingy playing it and making videos called the Gingy Indian. But if we want to be fair to this opening, it has to go back further. The Canadian international master Dean Hergott in the late 80s was playing it even before it was known as any other name. So we should give Hergott credit, objectively. How about queen takes c4? Collecting everything we can. The white square collection agency. Monster knight. We have the monster knight. So it should be called the Hergot, actually. I completely meant to mention that some earlier date, but the opening never really came up on the stream here. Yeah, I think first things first, we get the d5 pawn protected. He's only one pawn down here. The greater problem is that the bishop is pretty bad, objectively. His pawn structure is also kind of broken. Did you ever play some of the great Danish GMs like Larsen, Hansen, or Nielsen? Skinner? You know, it's a funny thing. I've played like no Danish GMs. I don't think I've ever played a Danish GM. Strange, isn't it? He has no way to attack the d5 pawn again. Yeah, this irony of this bishop. The irony. Nowhere to go. Aha. Man, he's defending himself like a god here. I may have made a very serious error. And the game is now quite complicated. But objectively, I mean, in reality, these 4 pawns against these 2 pawns and a strong knight on c4, that should really be winning for black. I'm straining my brain to think if I've ever played a Danish Grandmaster at all, for some reason. Okay, you know what? I mean, in reality, I didn't play very many opens in Europe. I've played a lot of opens in the United States and a lot of closed tournaments in Europe. And for that reason, I don't think I've ever played any Danish GMs. If I had played opens in Europe, obviously I would have played some Danish GMs, but some players I played like Rasmus Skita and Nikolai Borja, but I've never played a Danish GM, ironically. Not too many countries I can say that for. I mean, I think I've played a GM from most major countries. White is lost here. But I have played Suniberg Hansen on online blitz, and I enjoyed playing with him. He's a good player, and I had some entertaining blitz games against him, I can recall. But as far as tournament games, none. He sees picking off this guy. working around that nasty bishop, which isn't so bad. It's a good bad bishop. The active bad bishop. Soon to have a 5-on-2 majority on the queen side. Maybe we can get rid of that bishop if I can play e5. I mean, to be perfectly frank, I could sack the exchange right now and be like winning probably. I thought that that move should have been played like a long time ago, h4, to try to mobilize your pawn majority. e5 is on the way. No way to stop it. Okay, instructive game. Obviously can be improved, but you get the idea. Hard to use the two bishops in this closed structure, and that's the whole conception of bishop takes c3. Guys, thanks for joining me here. I do have a YouTube channel where I upload all these videos. Also later today, it's called Video Chess Training on YouTube. Later today, I'm going to be putting up a video I created for reviewing some of the games I played in my weekly simul here on lichess, which is taking place on Sundays at 6:30 p.m. CET. I played 20 to 25 players. This past Sunday, I'm reviewing a few games from that past Sunday simul, and that will be up this afternoon on the YouTube channel. Mule Skinner is playing e4. Yeah, he likes to play the Grand Prix attack, and I haven't had much success in like getting him out of closed positions, but the best way to try to do that is to play d5. This is a guy who really likes closed positions, so we try to open it up. Lazar Kolich said, the beefeater defense, what? Complete database of this opening being played. Thank you, Siroche. It should be called the Hergot. Relatively lesser known international master Dean Hergot of Canada. The first game I saw this so-called variation played was in like 1992 at the New York Open. I saw Igor Ivanov play white. I thought I saw Igor Ivanov play it with white somehow. I don't remember who was playing black. And Ivanov did something like, he tried radically to attack it with f5 g4 pawn takes pawn. I think it went like g4 pawn takes pawn h3. He tried to do a wing gambit, and then black just gave the pawn back. So the variation started to be played, this so-called Gingy Indian beefeater variation, started to be played around 1991, 1992. But according to my sources, it was being played by Hergot like in the late 80s, 89. So I don't know where he got it from. Knight to c3, Mule Skinner. Alright, let's go to our solid Panov. I've been playing a lot of games. Knight c6, unfortunately, knight f3, bishop g4 is a very drawy variation. We're going to go to Karpov mode. I have never played this line on the stream. This is my standard. Someone asked for Najdorf, please. XDIGM. I don't play the Najdorf. I would even do that though if my opponent would. He's a religious Grand Prix attack player, so I knew an American master, Braden Borneval, who was also a poker player. He would take with the e-pawn here. I don't ever really like that, but he made it work. I guess it's okay. Actually, Hungarian Grandmaster Laszlo Vadaj did that too. E takes d5. But the standard plan is to play against the isolated pawn here. Larry Christensen and myself have preferred queen c2 in this position. But the jury is out on which one of these two ways of defending c3 is actually better. I do play the Panov with white, actually. It's just that it seems lately I've been playing other stuff against the Caro-Kann with white, like main lines. The Panov attack against the Caro-Kann is kind of an interesting opening. I mean, you're really playing more of a queen pawn type of position, and the game can actually be transposed from Nimzo Indians, Queen's Gambit accepted, a lot of different, even Queen's Gambit declined positions. A lot of different lines. So here, to be perfectly honest, I don't have a great score with black in this opening. I haven't had so many games, but I lost once to a South African, Watu Kobese. I think in this line. I mean, he's a decent player. He's like 2,400. King's Gambit. Should be here for Wednesday. Lazar College said my endgame technique is very strong. Well, yeah, that's one of my better suits. I'm not really an opening theoretician. I enjoy opening theory, but I'm not a specialist. And I'm stronger in practical play, and endgame technique fits the category of practical play. I'm not really a specialist in anything. More like a kind of jack of all trades. Castles, and I don't know the book here. Probably we should go home. But not that way. I imagine that Karpov has played like 97 type of moves. There was some match Karpov-Kamsky. Kamsky would play Kamsky played a couple of these Panovs against Karpov that were very interesting. When Kamsky was really in the top, and when he was young and had a chance to play for the World Championship cycle, I was working with Roman Gingiashvili, and he was actually one of Kamsky's seconds at the time. But his father was too much of a problem. Alright, we're going to go back to f6, and I'm sure this is one of the main lines. I played more games. When I'm white, I don't play bishop d2. As I said, I usually play queen c2. The positions are a little different. I don't know this line as well. Obviously, we're threatening to take a pawn on d4. I don't think white did anything wrong here. I guess bishop g5 now. Black is passive. Bishop g5, defending the d-pawn and pinning me unpleasantly. Seems like I have a bad game. Or I wasted too much time. This is like a c3 Sicilian with it. It feels like I'm playing the c3 Sicilian the tempo down or something. That's what it looks like. I'm playing Vita Levente in a c3 Sicilian where I retreated my queen to d8 instead of d6, and now white has an extra move and my queen is on a passive square. That's what it looks like. White has to be better here. Rook c1 is not the only move, though. He can play queen e2. Queen e2 with the idea of rook d1 is quite a bit more aggressive. I think that's more to the point, you know, trying to get in d5 type of ideas. I have a bad feeling about this. Did I allow some kind of tactic? Is he just simplifying? You know what, peoples? This move should be considered pawn takes pawn, Rubinstein style, but he's going to bust up my pawn structure with d5, so I wouldn't mind playing g takes f and like king h8 and rook g8 and get the initiative, but white will play d5 and ruin my pawn structure if I do that, so I saw this variation, I assumed bishop e4, bishop b7, but I didn't see any like follow-up for white. The rook c1 is, you know, doesn't have anything special here. So it's possible that Muleskinner just like gave away his advantage with the last two moves. There are more favorable ways to open than others. Nothing wrong with the Islani. Is there openings in anti-chess? You're asking the wrong stream. I don't even know how to play anti-chess. Among the other players, Atat the Jedi are here, two of our friends. I mentioned Atat earlier. Why did I do that? He's on the stream quite a bit. I don't know who's challenging now. Oh, Zen Chess HGGG, we have played before, and Haggard DK, maybe the person who's asking me about Danish Grandmasters. Perry Ode is re-challenging me. I won't play the same player twice in the stream if there are others who are waiting to play. If there was a lull in the action, there was nobody else challenging, I would play the same player twice. We don't usually have time for that. Guys, I want to thank a few people donated already to the stream, to my YouTube channel via PayPal or otherwise, and I want to thank them. Muleskinner played queen c2. In general, this pawn is not the be-all and end-all. Black has these other pawns to protect the king, so losing the h7 pawn is not really a big deal in and of itself. But I do want to be a little bit careful here about like tactics on the c line and whatnot. We could also simply play g6. But knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes h7, king h8, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. Should be okay for black. I don't see any big problem. He has some knight b5 attacking my queen and knight c7, but I don't think that does anything. Obviously our development is a little behind schedule here, but we don't have any really tangible weaknesses other than the fact the rook is unprotected on a8. I don't think that amounts to too much. I mean, okay, bishop a6 probably loses to rook d1 now, so we looked at rook b8, and I thought my position is okay here. The plan will be to play g6 and king g7, I guess, if I need to protect my king. It's hard for him to attack me on the dark squares with no dark square bishop on the board. Another thing is that knight b5 drops the b2 pawn, so maybe not a big issue, but it would gain a tempo by attacking his queen. He needs to get a check on my king with a rook lift or something, but it's a little bit slow. Rook d1. He said he was turning off the stream, so he doesn't hear what I'm saying, which I appreciate. It does make it a little more fair. the very nasty little threat here. But it seems to be a one-move threat. And I wanted to play g6 anyway. When the h-file could actually turn against white. Don't see any value in sacrificing a piece. And now for the next question. Queen b4 looks playable, but a bit afield. Maybe best is queen e5. Also pinning his bishop central. Think central. In order to kick my queen off of e5, he's going to have to play like g3 and f4, which would terribly weaken his king side. So this is, as in the Sicilian, it's a really, really tough outpost to deal with. White is just without any advantage here, at best. You might argue that strategically he made some what did I want to say? Like headroads? Does that make sense? Inroads. Headway. I created a new combination of words. It was like inroads and headway, and I wanted to combine them into one word, so I created headroads. King g7, guarding this guy. He has made a strategic advantage for himself in the fact he's killed my bishop on c8. Like in the Catalans, sometimes this bishop is a dead piece. Very hard to activate it. He controls the long diagonal. But I guess if worse comes to worse, I can put it on a6 and just let it hang out there. Anyway, hopefully it will reach its full potential before the end of the game. Black has the possibility of a bishop pair advantage in the endgame, but we're a far cry from the endgame. Guys, I think we have time for 3 more games, it appears. It's 11:50 now. This will be over soon, as we're both getting low on time. So 3 more games probably. Headroad. Inroads and headway combined into one word. If the white square bishops were exchanged, it would be completely equal. Rook d8. Trading pieces. It's one good option. With this bishop pair, what I want to do is keep them on the board and slowly, very slowly improve my bishop pair. Problem with bishop a6 is that's the one way to get my queen off of the powerful e5 square. I was talking about this outpost, and he made life difficult there. Bishop a6. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. It is possible I have a small advantage in like bishop versus knight endgame, but I think bishop d3 should be an automatic move there. automatic, no questions asked. You have to play that move. Try to trade off my bishop pair. He's trying for something else here, but not as good. Maybe we can trade our bishop to mess up your pawn structure and take a pawn or something. Nice try with h4. You get an h5, you weaken my king side, and I might be sorry. That's not a good move, is it? You've got a trick. Oh. It's a trick, it's a trick, it's a trick, it's a trick. Okay, game settled entirely by time pressure. Sorry about that, but I know the feeling. Zen chess. Haven't played Zen chess, I don't believe. And Zen chess and HGG, I'm going to try to play 3 games. HGG's is a blitz challenge, so it probably won't be as long as the other games. It's Friday night poker night for me, so it's not a good night to stream on Saturdays. Not a good thing to stream on Saturdays. Yeah, I'm usually up very late on Friday nights, so I need my beauty sleep on Saturday mornings. So no stream tomorrow. I'm playing in the lucky Friday the 13th tournament tonight at Hungarian Poker Club. Alright. So, probably the Najdorf. The very trendy Najdorf. Almost everybody plays the Najdorf. Alright, let's play f4. I don't know the theory too deeply with f4, but I have the general concepts, and I have had friends who played it quite a bit. And I think it's like one of these moves that's good because it's not fashionable. I think it's not a bad strategy to purposely pick variations that are out of fashion and still have a lot of validity, you know. And the thing about like f4 is it's not a trendy line, you know, and so people aren't studying it. That makes it dangerous. Knight bd7 looks like a kind of standard line. Bishop c4, you know, it's just exposed there. It looks aggressive to go like bishop c4, but realistically black's playing bishop e7 and castling. Unless I have bishop takes f7 check or some kind of crazy sacrifice. Bishop c4, bishop e7, bishop takes f7 check. There's nothing there. I mean, it's not like I have queen b3, you know. So you have to train yourself not to play moves just for the sake of them looking aggressive. Zen chess plays b5. I suppose this must be a pretty standard response. It's like a classic Najdorf setup with knight bd7 and b5. To me, it looks like he's neglecting his kingside development a bit here. So let's just go with the flow. I mean, I could play a prophylactic move a3, but in some sense, it just doesn't seem necessary, you know. John Nunn supported this variation in his classic Beating the Sicilian series of books back in the late, well, I guess the 90s. A Batsford series where he, like, his entire repertoire is against every variation of the Sicilian. And I'm sure there are grandmasters playing it today, but it's not like one of those lines that's being really deeply, like, researched. king safety should be a priority in any opening, but particularly in the Sicilian, the Scheveningen, and the Najdorf, where you castle kingside. King h1 is absolutely a standard move. In some variations like bishop e3, the bishop even has the retreat square g1. So now I would imagine white can even sometimes play a4 to undermine that pawn on b5. But I don't think it's necessary here. I've never played this player before, Zen Chess. Pretty highly rated, over 2,000 in blitz, 2,075 bullet, 2,100 in classical. I don't like exchanging on e5 normally because it trades pieces. It also releases the tension, leaves me with an isolated pawn, and increases the mobility of his bishop on e7. But sometimes opening the file for the rook is a good idea. Queen e1 might be good in some positions, but here, this Dutch type of idea doesn't seem particularly appropriate with the bishop on e7. And so, what do? Knight h4 with the idea of knight f5. You could induce black to play g6 in some positions, but it doesn't look very developmental. What I need here is a plan, like a really real plan. I was dissing f takes e5, but objectively it's probably not a bad move. It has its disadvantages, but at least it's kind of like a clear idea. Problem with developing might be knight g4, and also pawn takes pawn sort of gains a tempo. I don't think it's that big a deal though. Alright, let's play this. You're drinking coffee made with tap water. Wow, is the tap water that bad where you're from? That's an issue? I feel safe with the tap water. Like, Budapest is supposed to have relatively good tap water. But on that subject, you know, people are always like, well, the tap water is tested, and the problem isn't necessarily like the tap water itself, it's like the pipes it goes through on the way to your house. So these buildings like I'm living in Budapest that are 150 years old in some cases, or 110 years old, I mean, the pipes are extremely old. So it's not really just a question of the tap water itself, but what contaminants it picks up on the way to through your house. But I would think that coffee would be relatively safe there. Troll, I mean, you are like boiling the water, right? I mean, bishop b7. I guess it doesn't get out the metallic contaminants. You need a Brita water filter. Bishop b7. Yeah, this all looks very natural. Zen chess. Zen chess, are you totally new to the stream? Don't recall Mr. Zen chess before. So queen g3 runs into the good old-fashioned knight h5. Queen h4 walks into a nasty diagonal. So, and f5 basically like closes all the pressure on his position. So I'm going to take and play from here. He can take back either way on e5. I always found those Brita water filters make things take like, I guess that, you know, anything made of plastic, you're gonna get that plastic taste. But about the only thing I really, you know, use the tap water for is coffee. I feel safe with that. Now, not Lazar Kolich, but Satis Troll is making me doubt my confidence in the coffee water. Knight takes e5. Man, we're getting low on time. I don't have any advantage. Black has played this very logically. I guess knight d4 would be interesting. I really don't like that visitor on e5 being there, posted there permanently. He has a lot of pressure on my position here. As you can see, bishop g5 looks kind of unconvincing. But he's threatening b4 in some instances. He's used no time at all. I guess I can play a3. It's not the most exciting move, but at the same time it's hard for him to... It's a little hard for him to mobilize against me. I mean, yes, rook c8, whatever, but b4 is hard to play because it leaves him with isolated pawns. Exchange sacrifices on c3 aren't realistic. There's not all that much he can do in to put it simply. And a3 is not a very elegant move, but I just don't think he can really do a whole lot. But my evaluation here is that black is probably 0.15 tenths of a pawn better because of the pawn structure, and I don't really have any threats. The guy's played perfectly so far. But I still think it's very difficult for black to really do anything here. Where to put my bishop? Well, I can't really... I don't really want to allow any fancy tricks with rook takes c3 and then sack and exchange or something. My position is pretty lame, though. I'm not claiming to be an f4 Najdorf expert, so I prefer black this position. He's playing pretty well. We have a little bit of play on the f file. Rook f5 begins to look interesting. To give him pause for thought. It also cuts out this knight h5 resource. Some positions. But we are some time pressure. The half-open f-file, I wouldn't mind like tripling heavy pieces on the f-file here. And now knight d5 becomes an option. Worthy of consideration. I'm running out of time. Okay. So I'm thinking about the position in terms of the bishops looking both ways, particularly the white square bishop. We have two plans. I think it's more queenside. Yes, there is possibility he gets checkmated, but it's not very likely. The plan of playing a4 looks like trouble for black strategically. I was mostly concerned with g6 there. But he decides to like sacrifice a pawn here. Maybe it's not a pawn sacrifice. Maybe this is just a sham. As they say in the business. Looks like very, very good play by black. Flawless. No time to sacrifice an exchange or anything like that. Looks like I'm just worse. Pretty impressive play. I'm not down any material yet, but I'm not sure that I won't be. We have time for at least one more game. I was hoping to get in 2, but it really depends. Hopefully 2 more games after I lose this one. I've been dragged around here. I had the feeling I missed something. Maybe he miscalculated. There really isn't anything he can do. But even after losing the exchange, the position is probably still okay for black. His position was so good he could just lose an exchange for a pawn and still be virtually equal. Compensation for the exchange. We have some tricks up our sleeve. Okay, he could have actually sacrificed his queen there, I thought. He could have had rook and bishop and pawn for queen, which would have been fine. But he found another tricky idea in time pressure. My problem here is that first of all, it's a difficult position to win. Secondly, I have no time. I don't really want to play h3. I'd rather play g3. Find a way to play g3, perhaps, and guard the white squares with my queen. And this is the idea. Not to put the pawn on h3 and create more dark square weaknesses for white. Here I'm slightly better. You can tie him down to f7. Trading queens would probably be a winning position. I think that theoretically this is very likely to be a draw. But I think any game of this position between very strong players, it's likely to be an extremely long endgame. Okay, he just lost on time. I made a blunder with b3, so this is... Now I'm worse, probably after queen takes a3. I'm fighting for a draw, so... Objectively, I think this position is drawable for black, but he has to be precise. But he had me completely outplayed and out of the opening. So need to do a little bit of research on that. f4 Najdorf. Got nothing with white. Nothing but a bad position. HGG, it's a fast game. 5-5. Let's play something fun. No, I lost to Lazar Kulich. DST, we had a kind of nasty time scramble. That was back and forth, and Lazar, in a queen ending, he was a pawn down with compensation, and I blundered a queen trade that allowed him to just create a devastating pass pawn that can't be stopped. So I had to just resign. It was one of the first games of the day. I was probably winning at some points, but it was just typical time pressure game. So I couldn't find a way to checkmate him. I was chasing his king around, and next thing I know, I walked into a lost king and pawn end game. But it was okay. I lose games. Hair's getting out of control here. So yeah, Zen Chess played very well. Ew. Is this a mouse slip? E4? Well, I mean, you know what this is? This is like some kind of Schliemann where he just illegally moved his pawn on c2 to c4. But it's actually not a Schliemann. It's like a Schliemann. Never mind. There's no bishop on b5, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It looks like a double king pawn where he played c4. Knight f6. Knight f6. Pawn takes pawn. e4. Knight h4 maybe? Sorry for the arrows. Here takes e4. He could even play queen e2 there. I could take on e4. There's a lot of moves. It's an interesting move. I'll give you credit. I could play bishop c5. Not a standard move here, but okay. I'm not going to say it's necessarily a bad move. Non-standard setup for white. What do we do? There are two different setups. I would play bishop b4 or bishop c5. It's kind of like a Grand Prix attack. Would you accept a 3-0 casual game off stream? DST, that would be the fastest time control I will play here. But yes. Nothing faster than that. And I don't really feel like playing a lot of those. It's bad for your blood pressure. But for the sake of argument, yes, if you challenge me to 3-0, I'll play a game or two at that time control. Preferably not against random people with less than 50 rated games. Okay, bishop d2 looks... Yeah, it looks passive, but bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, take, knight takes e4. Do the Nakamura eye roll and think, can we play that? But it's not necessary. Better just to complete my development. Let him worry about protecting his pawn on e4, or trade it off. Give up your strong point on e4. Prepare your flag. You have to be used to, I mean, I'm just not playing a lot of fast blitz. I used to. But now I'm enjoying this like increment and slow games more, so it's not like riding a bicycle. I mean, you have to really practice a little bit in the fast sudden death blitz. 5-0 is very comfortable for me, but 3-0, yes, I play 3-0. It's a little faster than I like, but I will accept. Sometimes I do. I don't think I've played any here recently. I used to play a lot of 3-0 back in the day. Even 2-0. But not something that I've been working on lately. You need a new mouse for this. Yeah, my mouse isn't the best. It does tend to glitch out on me. Castle's queenside. Positionally, dramatically changing the situation. What about f2? You can protect that point adequately. Like bishop c5. He could protect with the queen. This looks weird for white. Knight g4. He has a strange move like bishop g5 in some positions. I'm looking for cheapos. Bishop c5, bishop g5. But black is better there. This is one of many moves I could play. I just think this is a very, very strong piece. You have problems concretely with f2. If you trade your dark squared bishop off, see, I mean, the thing is that you permanently have weaknesses on the dark squares and the bad bishop. So he changes his mind. First he played the other way. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Should have gone there in the first place. Darn. Keeping the tension. Did I? No, I didn't miss something there. Now I have something. The double attack? Running out of time, but this is very concrete. After bishop e2, there's no way to protect both weak points. family forks. And probably white has to lose at least a critical pawn while allowing black a devastating knight in the middle of his position. Or the exchange, as you wish. The choice is yours. Maybe it's simpler to lose the exchange. No compensation whatsoever. I suppose this strange e4 opening move is playable, but your bishop is very bad and you have a lot of weak squares. It's a difficult line to try to play with white. I would stick with something more safe. You know, in the opening after I played f5, d4 is considered the best move by theory. e3 is okay. g3, I think I've even seen a3, but that looks kind of experimental. d3 as well. So no, white's just lost down the exchange for nothing here. Maybe not e6, huh? Bishop g4. Actually, nothing wrong with e6. If the plan is to take with the knight, I'd rather not do that, but we can just kick him out with c6. Or something to that effect. This is good too. It's good enough. Guys, I'm gonna play one more game after this. You've been in Hungary several times. Soroche. He told me he's an expert in Hungarian brandy. That's what I heard anyway. That's what he claims. It's unsubstantiated. Palinka. He goes to Palinka conventions. Alright, well, we're headed for the end game. And it doesn't look good. Perhaps I should play queen g5 check first there, but I don't think it really makes a difference. White is lost. So I want to thank everybody for joining me. We're going to play one more game here. When shopping for the computer, mice. What? Mice in Hungary aren't that expensive. Do you know the price of mice? It still works pretty well, so I hate throwing it out, but maybe the solution is to have a non-optical mouse. It has been pretty good. I've only lost maybe one game in the last month or so due to the mouse. So I'm not going to complain about it. Why is there no forced mate here? It's really irritating. Alright, thank you for the game, HGGG. Haggard DK. This is our last game for today. We'll be back on Sunday with the simul at 6:30 or 18:30 hours. Central European time. I'm playing 25 players this Sunday. Since I don't have any kind of team game, I should be able to do a normal simul. 40-40 time control. It takes over 2.5 hours, so if you do want to play my simul on Sunday, make sure that you don't have to like quit the game after an hour because you don't have time or something like that. If you do sign up, there's only 25 places. Late entries are not allowed, so that's one feature I would hope that lichess would enable, you know, like the ability to late join simuls. It would be cool. Skirmisher says, I use optical mouse with cord. Yeah. Aphorism says, this is great, I've not heard of you before. I'm fairly new to the chess scene, but I love your stream commentary, sir. Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you for joining us. So, I'm trying to make 2 moves in a row. I do have a history of doing that, going back to one of those Hastings Challengers tournaments where I was drinking beer on the pier. I did try to make 2 moves in a row against this guy. Charles Hurtan wrote an article about this. A very obscure American chess magazine called Chess Chow. It was published in the early to mid-90s and published by Joel Benjamin and Mark Ginsburg, other people. The story where I tried to make 2 moves in a row was one of many humorous anecdotes. I was white in a Bogo Indian where my opponent had a queen on e7, and it was an old guy, about 70 years old, I would guess. He sat there and thought forever, like on move 6 or something. I didn't understand why in like a standard opening position after 6 or 7 moves, this old guy was thinking for like 25 minutes or some ridiculous amount of time, and at some point I became so distraught, I basically Shades of Kamran Shirazi versus Jack Peters. At some point I became so distraught, I just decided he had made a move. His queen was like on e7, and he played d6, kind of closing it in. So I don't know, in my mind somehow he played queen e7, and he hadn't pressed his clock or anything. And I just sat down and started thinking, and decided that was his move. I wrote down queen e7 for the second time, and started thinking, and then I like reached out to make a move, and the guy started just going nuts, you know. I was like, what's going on? He said, you already moved. I was like, oh, sorry. So he thought I was on drugs or something, and the truth was I don't think I was even drinking beer at that point, and it was like a morning game, or I don't remember, but it was just kind of funny, and the guy must have thought I was crazy or totally insane, and then I played really well after that. I actually played a really, really nice game, and our joke in the magazine article was that like it was kind of like a bluff, you know, like I basically like faked him out by thinking like I didn't even understand like the basic rules of chess, that, you know, I didn't realize you can move twice in a row, and it was a big psychological gambit, you know, to try moving twice in a row, throw him off, make him think I'm an idiot, you know, and totally insane, and then play really well. But I think subsequently I also tried to do it in another game, but it's a little vague about the second story. I'm not really sure. Maybe I just almost did it, or... So Haggard DK dropped his rook. Can he try to trap my queen? Well, we're going to get out of there. This was fortunate. This was the last game. E takes d5, knight f6, knight c3, and now he played knight takes d5. This is a move that's not considered good. I do see this quite frequently from amateur players. The problem with the move is that you're bringing my queen to a fairly powerful position in the center where it's not that easy to drive it away. It has a lot of mobility, and it's generally just not recommended to play knight takes d5. So I suppose you could do it and then play like knight e2 and knight c3 and try to drive the queen away. Again, now bishop b5. This is a good try. Castling queenside. I should err on the side of caution here. There are some problems now. He played bishop b5. I think I better not. Better not play e6 because then h3, bishop h5, g4, bishop g6, and then knight e5. I don't really have a good answer for that, so maybe this isn't so easy. Bishop g4 was a little too ambitious. I should have played some kind of sensible move, like bishop d7 maybe. So we made it a little too interesting here. I can play bishop back to d7. Now it's too late. Alright, bishop b5. It's not too late though. I haven't played e6 yet. We have wasted valuable time. My queen is kind of trapped out of the game. But maybe the best bet is to just admit I made a mistake and play. Castling queenside is probably playable, but it's a little dicey. It's probably good enough. Alright. We are up a rook here. We'll live on the edge. Living on the edge. The queen will get back in the game one way or another. Defending f7. Defenestrating my king side. This is my king side. I have this. I do this a lot. Oh, by the way, I want to say that if you guys want to play Fischer random chess when I'm on the stream, Satis Troll, one of our regulars who's actually in the stream now, he used to like to play me chess 960, and there were a few other players. So I'm willing to play 1 or 2 chess 960 games during my stream. If you guys want to do it, that's totally within reason. But I was going to say, the reason I brought this up was because I said my king side. You know, I used to do this in chess 960 all the time. I always describe this area where my king is as my king side. And in normal chess, of course, I have to say this is the queen side. But if it's like chess 960, there is no king side and queen side, so it was always funny. It was always funny describing, you know, the area where my king is castled as my king side. But Haggard DK, I wouldn't resign either with my king in the kind of strange position on c8. Even though you're down a rook, a weaker player could make some mistake here and get checkmated, or lose a queen, or lose material. So when there's great imbalance in the position, like regarding like the situation of the kings, or some other factor, don't resign because you're down a piece or down a rook or something. Sleepy Mary says next time I'll challenge you for some Fischer random. Actually, I think that Satis Troll was put off by the fact that I wouldn't accept his rated challenges. He likes to play rated games, so. But I've made a kind of across the board rule not to do rated games because I'm having a hard time talking and playing fast enough. This is the last game for today, guys. I'm going to get the YouTube video up reviewing a couple of games from last week's Simul on Sunday. And so we have this week's Simul on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. CET. I do start promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central European Time on Sunday. So if you want to play, be here. And I accept the first 25 players who sign up for my Simul. The stream should start a couple minutes before that, and you can just say, hey, I'm here, I want to play. Bishop e3 now. I think it's time for Time to take a walk. Yesterday, one of my regular chess students, I missed a lesson with him. I went out the door for a walk and I forgot about the lesson. I'm going to do the same thing here. He's attacking a7. I would normally play like king b8, king a8, but to be perfectly honest, I'm a little nervous about the a7 with the bishop on e3. So I'm going to start with a different plan. Let's get out of here, get the rooks connected. This is more about getting my rooks in the game than it is about my king safety. So king d7, and we're going to take this one down. King is quite safe here. He blundered the rook with check. That should wrap it up. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to finish this one out. We have a very powerful a-pawn that will, I guarantee, become a queen. And it's not the only way to win the game, but it's the fastest. So this guy is going to join his friends and be reborn as a queen on a1. Are you bilingual? If bilingual requires, if it means that I'm like really fluent, no. I speak a little bit of Hungarian. I'm not really great, and did study some Russian and Spanish in school, but I've forgotten most of that. Hungarian is probably my leading second language, but I wouldn't call myself fluent and bilingual. Maybe in another 10 years or so, we'll be really fluent. Alright guys, thank you for joining me. It was fun. We will be back on Sunday with the simul stream, and then during the week, Monday to Fridays, I always am streaming 10 a.m. to 12:30, 2.5 hours every morning, Central European, so keep that in mind and hang out and invite your friends and check it out. All the streams I do upload to YouTube, and a lot of them are kept for 2 weeks on Twitch, so you can review the stream. If you miss it, if you miss something, you want to replay it, you can check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Also, again, thanks to those who have donated via PayPal, and do appreciate that. We need a little bit of support to keep the stream and stuff going over the course of the year, but hopefully we'll be going for the rest of this year into next year. And last thing to mention, if people are interested in private lessons, I have an affordable rate, and you can contact me via my email, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. So again, thanks guys for joining me, and we will see you Sunday for my simultaneous exhibition here on lichess for 25 players, 40-40 time control. And otherwise, have a good day, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys on Sunday. Bye-bye.